Hi, everyone. Welcome to the ARPA Commission meeting of June 27th, 2022. Our meeting is starting. We'll call the meeting to order at 1:31 p.m. And I just did a little roll call around the room. It looks like we're missing two people. One is Samantha Hills, who's absent, and Mike D'Amato is in the building and should be joining us. He just isn't here at this moment, but we have enough to get started, so I think we will. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes, and you all should have received it in the packet I sent you. Did everyone have a chance to read them? Did anybody have any changes suggested? Or just want to make a motion to accept them?
I'll move to accept the minutes from June 6th.
I'll second that.
Any discussion about them? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of June 6th, 2022, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? No. Okay, so the minutes are approved. We're all caught up to the other minutes, which is great. And thank you, big thank you to Mike D'Amato, because he has been on top of that stuff, so that's great. As far as correspondence, I did receive a note from you, Mark Macinda, who's in the audience here, right? Like explaining, but I think you're here and you're probably gonna be explaining all of that when we get to that in the agenda.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's, it was just a note that came through our portal. So it's not really a letter, it's not really an email, but, and it was just like 2 sentences, so. So, and he'll explain it. So, other than that, there's no correspondence. So we can move on to present to speak. Is anybody here to say something about anything on the agenda? And that also goes for the people online. If you have a project on the agenda that's different, well, you can talk about that when you get to it. But if you are a member of the public who wants to say something, which I don't see all the people. Oh, there they are. Does anybody have
The ability to.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if you wanted to say something, just please unmute yourself. Or if not, we'll just give it another minute and move on. All right. I don't see anybody waving or saying they'd like to say something. So I think we can move on to new business. And we have 4 projects that have come in since our last meeting, and they just need to be formally received by the ARPA Commission. So I think we can entertain a motion to accept ARPA 35, 36, 37, and 38, which are all listed on the agenda.
So moved.
Right, any second for that?
So I'll second.
Troy? All right, any discussion about just the formal receiving of these applications? All right, all in favor? Say aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, motion passes. So those are all received requests, which is good, because now we're going to move on to things to be heard. And those 4 items are on the agenda to be heard. So then we'll just go in the order that they are. And the first one's ARPA 35, to bring the urcommunitycares.org to Willington. The request is for $6,000 for the Community Cares nonprofit. And I believe Michelle Puzo and Erica Guida, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but I believe that they're on the call to talk about this request. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi, can you hear me okay? Are you able to hear me?
You can.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. Also, we have Michelle. She's part of our team as well from CareClicks, and Erica, as you mentioned, is on the call as well. So thank you for having us. The idea behind bringing Your Community Cares to Willington is what we do is we help older adults and people with physical disabilities get connected to their neighbors, to volunteers who are background checked, to help them around their house with household chores that might become too difficult for them, to have companions because they're lonely and isolated, to get rides to doctor's appointments if they don't have enough transportation, get to the grocery store. They can have help with yard work, all types of activities where volunteers can help. And also we're adding the service of telehealth. We know that many older adults, 10,000 people are turning 65 every day. So what your community cares does is try to help towns get better prepared for this population of people to be aging and bring the services directly to people's homes. And it's really important to make sure we're meeting them where they are. If they're homebound and isolated, trying to bring those services directly to their homes. So telehealth services can also help with mental health concerns, making sure people are having access to healthcare, that because of COVID, people have not been getting routine checkups, and all types of telehealth services that we are now going to offer as well. So the ARPA funding would help support residents get enrolled on the website, and we would be working with outreach efforts to find those people in need and also those volunteers that would like to help. So that's what the funding would be for.
And from what I understand, you're in several communities in the state of Connecticut. And can you just tell us how you would do that outreach and how you do it in the other towns and how we fit into that puzzle?
Sure. Yeah, right now we've grown to about 130 towns across the state. So any town that we receive funding in, we first create a spreadsheet for that town. So any town department, any library, any nonprofit organization, the businesses in that town, we have the contact information so that as soon as we get the funding, we're able to do outreach through phone calls and emails to be at events and presentations and really start networking across the town as we have done. It's been very successful as we've done that in other towns. So once we build this spreadsheet, we email people, we call people on that spreadsheet for them to then help us with that outreach, post flyers. You know, if it's the fire department, we're asking them, hey, if you're going to pick up this person over and over again, consider asking them if they've heard of your community cares, and we're equipping them with these tearaway pads. So it's an easy way for you to say the social services, whatever department it is, you see somebody that needs help and you can give them some outreach information and they could look into it if they're interested in signing up with your community cares.
Okay. So Michelle, you're fortunate in that we have a few people in the room right now who are representatives of the fire department and of human services and of the senior center. And I see Ed back there. And I don't know if they have any questions for you or.
I do actually. So hi, Michelle, how are you?
Hi.
For those who don't know me, I'm Jenny Arpa, Director of Human Services for the town. So Michelle and I have discussed partnering going forward in this next fiscal year, and my department will be funding a little bit of your community cares. So I'm just wondering, with this additional funding, what will that bring to Willington?
More people that can be served. And also the addition of us adding in the telehealth services that we haven't currently had because we haven't had the funding to add those into the website. So that's an additional resource for people.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sue.
Are there any other towns similar in size to Wellington that you've had success in?
Yeah, we're in, is it what, like 5,000 people?
Yeah.
About, trying to think of a town right off the top of my head. I mean, we have grants all across the state. So I'd have to get back to you exactly with that town population. I'm not sure right off the top of my head. I'd have to get that information, but I could get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, and this is a ready to go type of thing. So if we went to a public hearing with it and we're approved, you'd be ready to turn the key the next day and get it going?
Yeah, we have everything already ready for Wellington to go as soon as we receive additional funding.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? Does anyone want to make a motion to move it to a public hearing?
I will recuse myself.
I'll make a motion
Okay. To,
to bring it to public hearing
okay, and the amount of,
in the amount of $6,000 for your community cares.
is that seconded?
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion about that?
So Jenny, you're totally on board.
Yes, I'm actually very familiar with them.
Okay.
Yes.
The applicant is actually, and it probably, I read the thing, it's not us, it's meaning the town, it's Community Cares is
Correct.
the actual applicant, the ones that will receive
Yes,
the funds.
they're a nonprofit.
Okay, and they're not currently in Wellington, right? Just it.
I'm
this is-
sorry, I didn't hear.
They're
you.
not currently in Wellington. This will be a new venture.
It will be
Okay,
going forward.
all right.
So it sounds like you already had a plan to get
Yes,
going
but
with
it
it.
wouldn't start until July
July
1st. Yeah,
And that this would be an enhanced version of what you were already planning on doing.
exactly.
Okay, and I guess my question was, because they're not a nonprofit that resides in Wellington, like, right, you're not, I don't know which town you're in, but you're not, your offices aren't here.
Right, we don't have a brick and mortar in any, I mean, we're located in Manchester, we're a virtual nonprofit. So we are not in, so any of the towns that we're supporting, we do it all virtually. And then I go obviously to any events or presentations all across the state. But no, we do not reside in Wellington, but Wellington is my hometown. And it is a town that I am hoping to have a lot of success in, because I know there's a lot of people in need. So I am hopeful that we are able to expand beyond the funding in the Human Services Department, because that only serves a small amount of people.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just thinking of the logistical part, and I didn't think about this ahead of time, that if you're not in Wellington, how we could get the funds to you, but one way that I'm thinking is maybe through the Human Services.
Yeah.
Department.
That would work.
So it would be a Human Services or a fire department sponsored initiative who is really the requester of the funds to pay it to, and would this be for 1 year only, or?
It could be for 1 or 2 years. It would be an ongoing until that we get, we're looking for about, 30 enrollments. So until we would have reached that number, we would continue that funding.
I personally would rather see it that way, that it was sponsored by Wellington.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes a
Through
lot of
Wellington
sense.
organization
Mhm.
or agency. Michelle, hi, my name's Tom. Are you currently applying in other towns for ARPA funds, just for information?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Can you tell us how the other towns do it? Just how it, I know every town's doing it differently, but.
Yeah, you're our first committee that we've approached in person, so I can't tell you that yet. So I just applied all at the same time to all these towns, so I'm not sure how all the other towns are working. I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's good information.
So we
Okay.
are funded currently, we're funded by community foundations, by municipalities. Everybody just sends us the check directly. So I'm not sure how this is different. I'm not sure we're willing to go with any route that works for Wellington.
Okay. All right, any other questions from anyone?
I guess I'd like to amend, can I propose an amendment?
Yeah.
That the funds, or that it's sponsored by
Human Services.
Human Services. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Yep,
If that's
Um,
cool. with
that's
you.
cool. I'm on board.
So then the only other thing that just occurred to me is that we'd be creating a program that, kind of like all the other programs, that has an end date to it. And if it was something the town wanted to continue, we'd have to come up with additional funds. And this is like a one-time thing, these ARPA funds, so, I don't know if there's a way to address that, but.
Well, depending on how successful it is, then one idea would be for the Human Services budget to maybe put some of that funding in the future. Have to see how successful it is.
What amount, Jenny, are you putting in for July, for after next fiscal year?
$1,000.
1,000?
Okay,
They're awesome services that they
yeah,
offer.
so we have a motion on the table, and we have a second, and we've discussed. Any more discussion, questions?
Just the amendment.
Yep, and the
So you
motion
just
includes the
probably
amendment,
just- Okay.
Yeah.
If a friend will do a friendly.
yep.
Yes.
So I guess if there's no more questions, then, I guess we'll ask, all in favor? To move to public hearing? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? It's,
Let the record show I don't vote.
yeah, right. Okay, so this one will move to public hearing. We don't have a date yet. Last we had talked, we're targeting July 11th for our public hearing. So I think that's the date we're working with, but we'll keep you, I'll be in touch with you, Michelle, when we know for sure, which will hopefully be at the end of this meeting. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, moving on to ARPA 36, employee retention bonuses for Wellington Fire Department employees. $17,000 for Wellington Fire Department 1. And Stu, I don't know if you're here to talk about it, or Alex is
I wasn't
coming.
planning to, but if somebody has specific questions, I might know the answer, but I said Alex, see if he's attending today's meeting, but apparently not.
Oh,
I didn't hear back from him.
okay.
Support your-
So from the materials that we received and sent everyone, it sounds like the fire department wants to do a retention bonus plan similar to what the town is doing. Slightly different amounts and slightly different criteria, but the same basic idea.
Yes.
And I don't know if anyone has any specific questions about it.
I do, I just have one. So I see that you've listed staff and then officers. So the staff, the officers that are listed, they're your volunteers? Because you fall into a little bit of both.
There's a mix there that
Okay.
some of the officers are employees as well.
So is that why they're listed as officers? I wondered if this was just paid staff or a combination of paid staff and your volunteer staff,
Combination.
but not all of your volunteer staff.
That's correct. I mean, during COVID, especially the early days, we basically told most everybody to stay home or stage at the scene and don't go in, and simply send the 2 paid staff in to see if they could handle that. And if they needed additional help, they could call for it. And so for months and months and months, that's how it was handled. That the 2 paid staff went in and everybody else stood by for that sort of thing.
So although they're listed in 2 different categories, all of the individuals listed were paid staff at some.
Yeah, they're all, I believe they're all in the payroll system.
Okay, thank you.
And no volunteers are receiving. They're volunteers also, but they're receiving, they're slated for this because they're paid staff, right?
Well, yes, kind of.
That
So,
was kind of my.
you know,
Because they
there's
fall
As I-
into.
When I read it, at least that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
To me.
So I believe all the people listed on there are in the payroll system already as either full-time or part-time employee. They said for months it was, 2 people and that was it for the most part. And there were some calls that we needed additional help for, but we wanted to limit exposures as best we could. And given the number of people, of our people that got COVID, I'm not sure how successful we are for limiting exposure among ourselves. If you read the document, details of
No,
there about
that was a good narrative.
how many people were sick and isolated and quarantined, sometimes for weeks and weeks at a time.
Erica, do you have the list in front of you?
I do.
You mind if I?
No, not at all.
I just
And
don't-
I have one other question regarding the list. Can you, and you may or may not be a person who can answer this, why the officers are starting at a higher rate than the rest of the staff?
I do not know Alex's reason for
Okay.
doing that. Generally speaking, the officers have a greater level of responsibility and more activity in general for going to calls.
But if they're not, and that's in their volunteer capacity,
Oh, okay.
correct? If they're paid, when you're working,
The rank,
are you in the same category that the
the
individuals?
rank
working?
turns on when the tones go out.
Okay.
So you may be simply a paid employee, but when the tones go out, you revert to your, whatever your rank is in terms of operations.
So now I have to, this opens up a whole new other thing. There are people that don't work that are on here, current, right? They're not paid, they don't normally work the schedule, or, we need to nail down this paid
I think
volunteer
they might be
thing.
per diem.
I mean, some of the per diem people work, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. Some work more, some work less. When people were out quarantined with COVID, these
Right.
people worked a lot more because we had shifts to fill.
I'm just, are they getting this because they're paid staff? Yes, no, or, I'm not trying to be, I'm just, there's another whole bunch of people in my other ear going, volunteer, and I thought, in my mind, I thought at this point it was all paid, they're getting this because they're paid,
Well,
like the town.
I think the list you see there are people that had to go to the call. They didn't have a choice.
Okay. That's how I looked at it, is they were paid staff and they were responding work. I guess for me, I'd like, and maybe Chief Moore can answer to that, a little bit of why there's the differentiation between the officers who are clearly following the volunteer side of the fire department and not the paid side, and just trying to balance that out for my perspective. I understand how it worked. I know the amount of times they put in. I can look at that list and know after meeting after meeting after meeting with Chief Moore, how many of those individuals were quarantined for long periods of time. They certainly put themselves at risk far above the rest of us. I know from the town's perspective, when I put in a similar request, I based those higher amounts on my department heads. So department heads
Right.
versus the remainder of the staff, their workload was considerably more. And so I'm trying to understand why an officer who works per diem would be rated different than a full-time employee of the fire
So
department.
when you say they had to go, is it because, I'm looking at a couple of names, and obviously I know who works and all that. When you say they had to go, what do you mean, like, when you?
They were on the paid personnel schedule for that time period.
Okay,
And the calls went out and they had to go.
okay. So it's because they're paid that they're getting this,
Mhm.
or that's all. Yeah, and that's what I thought.
Yeah, we didn't go the entire list of all the volunteers and
No,
or anything like that.
Right.
These are folks that were mandated, had to go.
they were
Um,
on duty at some point.
At some point during the COVID season.
Right, okay.
And a
thanks.
good bunch of them ended up with COVID somehow or other. I mean, as did
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
everybody else, but if you look at the percentage, it's pretty darn high.
I'm not trying to, I think about this as I did about the town plan. I'm just, you know how it is.
Yeah, we cannot use the ARPA
As far
funds
as-
for volunteers.
Right.
So if someone on that list is a straight volunteer, they cannot receive those funds.
They can check with Donna, but I believe every one of them is on the payroll system.
Stuart, can you tell me how many full-time staff there are, paid staff?
Or full-time.
4 full-time? And so those 4 full-time would be weighted different depending on if they were officer in the department or not an officer in the department.
Right, or the number of hours, which increased the level of exposure. In the middle of this, we had one of our full-timers leave a few months ago. So you don't see he's not on the list, but his replacement is at a lower dollar amount because he hasn't been through COVID season as long as anybody else.
And I asked this question, and again, maybe Chief Moore can answer this, because I see a full-time member on the staff list and an officer who would definitely have been more per diem, and just filling in on the officer side, so getting a little bit more of a bonus and just trying to rationalize that, wrap my head
I
around.
suspect it has to do with the level of responsibility, similar to a department head. That why does a department head destined to get a higher bonus? That they have more responsibility. They run the show when the call's going on. And that's why I'm somewhat guessing, but I'm spoken with Alex specifically about that one.
I'm definitely in favor of this. Again, the amount of work and the amount of risk involved with our EMS was incredible in those still, but for sure in that first year, and they spent a lot of time at what we use as a home base for quarantining. So I just had some general questions about how the list was and the amounts were determined.
Any other questions about the request?
I'll move that Article 36 in the amount of $17,000 for public hearing.
A second.
And I don't get any funds from the fire department, so I'm just
Right. So I just have one overall comment, which is that you'd have to recuse it because Stu is on the list. to
Yes,
receive a bonus.
well, giving Mike McCool's definition the last time, recuse means I can't participate in conversation. However, if you're asking me questions, I kind of have to answer. I will definitely abstain from this vote and any subsequent votes on this.
Okay. So then that, to me, though, now we have 6 people who can't vote on these bonuses, and they're separate requests, but they're related and connected. So now we have a majority of this board who's tasked with approving these bonuses who cannot vote, who are recused. And then that leaves the other 5 of us with that responsibility. And I'm not sure.
So I see them as they're two very different proposals, although they are similar in scope. So while there may be recusals on the town side, Stuart would recuse himself necessarily from that, and they would recuse themselves from a conversation revolving a fire department. In my opinion, because they would not be benefiting from that. I mean, that certainly the choice to recuse is an individual choice.
Right.
I would recommend, but it is an individual choice. And while I'm ready for this to move to public hearing, I still have just some questions I hope that Chief Moore could speak to before I'd be comfortable moving forward with it.
I just wonder if these 2 proposals together would be a good thing to bring to a town meeting directly for the townspeople to vote on, so that the other 5 of us who aren't going to get any money from this don't have to make this decision, because I feel compromised personally, because I like you all. I'd like you all to get your bonuses. But just having that feeling, I don't know that that's right, that I speak for the whole town in that feeling. And I just feel like it's a big responsibility for the remainder of us, but I don't know, it's just it's a weird and unusual situation to be in for this commission. And I think it's unique enough that it deserves its own time.
I don't think so, but.
You don't think so?
I mean, if you can always abstain if you're
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I don't feel that. I don't mind deciding. I get that lots of people can't vote. In 1 or 5 or whatever, or 6 or 4 to vote.
And going back to the formation of this committee, where, following the town attorney, where, as I know, has determined that this committee is tasked with the responsibility to determine yea or nay on these projects. And
Projects are one thing, bonuses for members of this commission is a whole other thing, though, in my mind.
But if we were, if the proposal weren't a bonus, but we were looking at it in the premium pay, so one of the options for us through the, in the final rule is pay. And so this, we did it in a, just a different sort of look, and so that it didn't carry forward with their pay in any way. It was a one-time thing, but that is one of the things that we knew we could be tasked with when we looked at the interim final rule and when the ordinance was created, that we would be tasked with potentially being able to award pay to individuals.
I think it should be evaluated separately as long as circumstances were, are somewhat different in terms of the risks and the protections that were able to be made or not. You know, ultimately, do they deserve it, I guess. And the town hall side of things isn't the same as the fire department side.
And Christine, you are getting input at a public hearing,
Mhm.
and you can, like any other project, you can weigh what people say, factor that into your decision,
Mhm.
which is what you do with any.
Yeah. It's just a very unusual situation for all of us to
Sure.
be in.
And I hear what you're saying. I, both of these things, I look forward to the public participation and the public hearing and to hear what the public has to say and their feelings on that. But and you know, we spoke that, well, this is goes a little different from the motions on the table, but when consulting the town attorney, his recommendation was that these things be handled through the ARPA Commission, as we have an ordinance, and that's where those funds were set to be dispersed through, and that would be the procedure. And we would set a precedent for there to be argument for any of these items to go back through a town meeting if we started setting a precedent in that direction, and that it certainly is up to the ARPA Commission. From my own personal view, I would like to make the decisions moving forward, what we do, yes or no, after the public hearing, right? So that's what we do. We have this process set up so we can hear from the public, and we may have more questions after that, or may feel like we determined the process. I want to know how the public feels about not necessarily the ARPA process, but the project on the table. And that's what we're basing our approvals or denials on, is this board and taking public input at the same time. So I'd be curious to hear what the public has to say about the proposals before us.
And part of the reason you have, well, we have a large committee, and part of that is that when this stuff comes up, you have other people that can, if the people aren't here, they're on vacation, you have enough people to make decisions, you know, if this kind of thing
Mhm.
happens. You know.
And some of these decisions may be tough for people individually that, for the most part, we all know each other and, you know, interact with each other in other aspects around town, and to say, you know, yay or nay, that's ultimately up to
Can be
us.
uncomfortable.
I mean, you know, I Troy a lot of projects in Wyerstown and things like that, but if I'm gonna go no on one of his projects, that's ultimately up to me to determine, you know, what I believe
Doggone Stuart.
that project is.
But saying no to one of his projects and saying no to him getting a bonus, when he gets to decide if you get a bonus, that's very different. And
I understand. When you put it in that perspective, I hear where you're coming from. And I would hope that each member of this commission looks at these projects on the merit of the project and not the way someone might, I hope, right, that everyone has integrity of their individual decisions based on the facts of the project, not what may or may not have entered before. And I can tell you, because I drafted the ordinance and first presented to the Board of Selectmen, where it went through to town meeting. At that time, bonuses wasn't something I had intended, right? When I suggested the members that made up the public, it was the members that would be utilizing these funds in the broadest scope and representing the broadest amount of the public. And so, you know, I didn't consult with the staff when doing so. and understand that that now puts them in a different position. But I think when you look at the ways in which we can utilize these funds, this is definitely one of them. And I think it's important. And from my perspective, it also doesn't carry forward into future budgets. So it's a way to recognize the work that was done specifically due to COVID. And we don't have a lot of projects that answer directly back to COVID. Right. So we have some that kind of go a little bit left to that, which is okay. The funds are able to be used in that capacity. But these are some of those that definitely give back.
Yeah, I was thinking, maybe it's just a matter of, do we just call it something different? Is there a better terminology? Because I look at this, as someone who was in a dozen town halls during COVID, I can, for at least most of the people on the list, I can give you very specific things that they did completely beyond their job description, whether it be using their personal email address to track who's in the building so that we could know who to call. So to me, this is hey, we see the work that you put in and we're thanking you for that, which was beyond what you needed to do. And in other town halls, people were refusing to do. And in Mansfield or other places where they have staff of 5 or 8 in the department, and here you have a staff of 1, it all falls on them. So I think it's just really the town officially saying, we see that you did that extra work. So I don't really see this as a bonus. I see it as us paying them for something that they did that they didn't have to do, right? It's money that we owe them. This is how I view this. So maybe there's an optics thing here. When people see bonus, they think it's we're just flush with cash and we're throwing money around. But I really saw a lot of people put in a lot of extra work and hours and think about crazy ways to come up with solutions to things that they never thought they'd have to figure out. And so I just look at this as us, the town, formally making them whole for that time.
I don't disagree with any of that. I'm just concerned about the process and how we get there, and who actually says yes to it. Is it the 5 people who don't have to recuse themselves, or is it do we just let's bring it to a town meeting and let the townspeople, who I do think will support it, but I don't know that I know it as. I don't know that I have the authority to decide that on behalf of them to that degree, but if that makes sense.
We have the authority. You don't know if you feel like you should have the authority.
I feel like as a member of an 11-person board where only 5 people get to vote, that means 5 people get to decide this. And
well, what if 4 or 5 people were on vacation on a week and you had to vote? I'm not.
yeah,
I do get your point. Okay, that's not.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say, or make fun of your.
yeah. I'm just saying it's uncomfortable, and why not just take that away and bring it to the town, when I do think they'll support it.
I think that in my mind, going to the Board of to the town meeting and that process, if all of these other things had not come up with who should be doing what in the process and clarification on the commission and its authority, if that was all non-existent, I think, fine, it's another way to answer the question. But given that we've had all of that discussion already, I am not so concerned about this board making the decision that I think we should open that up again for something that in my mind is, I don't see as very controversial or risky or whatever. To me, it's not a this or that. There's a lot of other stuff that comes along with sending it to a town meeting.
And I would really say, Christina, if you get to the point where we vote and you really don't feel good about it or comfortable, then don't. Then abstain. Seriously.
Yeah.
But I get your view as chair. You're looking out for the process. I understand.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that we have to go to the Board of Finance, by the way. Couldn't this board just go directly to the town meeting?
But that opens up that can of worms, so every project would then go to town meeting.
Right.
We've already approved like most of the
Well,
money.
yeah,
We
that's my point.
So
So
we're-
this is just one more.
So we're now at the point where we have more requests than we have dollars left. So
Yeah.
if we say no to someone Are we now opening the door to say, you should have taken this to a town meeting, may have felt different than the 11 of you? And I think that is, that was what was expressed from, you know, the concept from our attorneys, that we are opening a precedent for different projects to go in a different route if they don't feel like they're gonna get the response at this commission, so.
Well,
I
I
hear the
mean,
concern.
I'll do whatever the majority wants to do. I just wanted to raise that as an issue because. Yeah. So where are we? We are at this, there's a motion, it's been seconded. We talked about the process, and we talked a little bit about the actual request. Any more questions about the request itself?
Or about the motion to go down.
About the motion to go to public hearing?
Are you comfortable?
I have some more questions, and I know Chief Moore's on, but the motion right now is to move it to public hearing. So I think at public hearing, those responses, those
Okay.
questions could be answered. I think he would probably address them then.
Okay. All right, so we're ready to vote. All right, all in favor of moving this project to public hearing, please say aye. Anyone opposed?
I will abstain.
Okay, Susan's abstaining. Just for the record, I'll oppose moving to public hearing because I think we should just go right to a town meeting with it, but, I'm probably the only one.
So you're one that,
Yeah,
can I ask for a roll call vote then? Just the rules
Yeah.
of a hybrid meeting.
yeah, and we don't have
Not
anyone
minutes.
online,
We do not.
so, yeah.
Christina's testing.
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, so roll call, so
I was an aye.
you're an aye. Stu, are you an aye? Okay. Mike, Erica,
Aye.
nay, abstain, aye. 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 All right. Okay, so we'll move it to the public hearing agenda, which is at the end of our agenda to pick when that public hearing is going to be. So stay tuned on that one. The next item is ARPA 37, the 2022 John Deere skid steer, $68,000 for Department of Public Works. And Troy, are you here to talk about it? Okay.
That's a very good.
Oops, sorry.
Now,
Basically-
Troy.
Yeah, I know. Basically, it's another tool in our toolbox. Hopefully this year we'll be getting an excavator. The skid steer is like a multi-use piece of equipment. We can put a rotary head mower on it to mow the transfer station, mow retention ponds. We can put a milling head, so when we do some paving, we can key cut it. You can put a sweeper on it, you can put a plow blade on it. We could use it to plow the parking lot if a vehicle broke down. It's got multiple uses to it, so it's.
Is, I guess, two questions. One, will it be newer used? And two, does it put us in a position where we do not have to rent or hire out anything because now we have it?
Yeah, so it would be new. And then to your point, yes, we haven't rented one yet, but we're doing a project on Moose Meadow right now. We've got the backhoe there. It's a smaller piece of equipment where we could fill the trench in easier and not taking the whole width of the road up. So yeah, it is something that, you know, would be beneficial more for us. Is that answered enough?
What's the average lifespan of a skid steer if we maintain it properly?
20 years, 30, I mean, it depends on what the use is and what it's, how it's taken care of. And it's-
So I know what you can use it on, right? So we talked, I had the opportunity to talk to you about this, but I also recognize that replacing it down the road could be very challenging. And all the things you said it can use, would those be additional pieces of equipment that we need to buy to put on it?
Yeah, eventually. So I mean, that would be something that we could put into the budget to do each, you know, would it be to go get every single piece of attachment now? You'd be looking at an astronomical amount of money.
Right.
But it's something, you know, we could maybe put a milling head next year or put it into the budget.
So if you didn't receive the funds to buy some of those attachments, how much could you use it?
We could use it pretty much all the time. We use it for the winter time, you know, with the push box here in the parking lots. Right now, we're using it for trench work. The only thing I would really consider purchasing would be a rotary mower. head for it, where we can mow the retention ponds. We currently send a guy in there with a weed whacker when there's water in there, or we mow with a zero turn, so it's not kind of, so there is something with that.
I think it'd be beneficial, but I think the reality is there may not be budgets available for all of the things we may want to do with it.
Absolutely.
And that replacement could be an issue moving forward. So
Is it open cab or is it?
Oh, closed in cab.
Hmm?
It's closed in. heat,
So they
air
can mow
conditioning,
or use it in the winter time?
Yeah, everything.
heat and air conditioning.
Yeah. And Troy, it hasn't been on the CIP list.
And now, because it's gonna take 5 years to do it, so I took my opportunity and asked this committee to do it, so
Okay.
that's all.
How much, you alluded to this. How much money, how close are we? Do you, with funding, how much?
So right now, we have $583,982 to appropriate. There are, with all these new and tabled requests that we have, we're at 785,000. So there's about 200,000. That is, if we were, as of today, if we were to say yes to every single thing, we can't, because we need $200,000
Okay.
more.
So we gotta start really.
Yeah.
sharpening
Mhm.
the pencil.
Yeah, there's probably a little bit more than that, and Donna will know when some of these projects start to close out, and we'll have a little bit more, but that's
Right.
gonna be dribs and drabs. It's not $100,000. Yeah, it's not. It might be 15 here and 5 there and 1 here.
And it's important to know of the unfunded so far, we have 3 projects that are at the $200,000 range. So, we have some large projects on here, but yeah, when I look at when this came through, it's clear to me that we have to really start making some tough choices.
Yeah, well, one of the projects that is included in that is 200,000 for
Yeah.
the generator at the senior center, which they had said they had scaled that back, but we didn't have a number to put in for what that scaled back number would be. So it is less than 200,000, but
You mean the one that, not the
The
senior
Button
center
Hill.
at
the
Yeah.
Button Hill.
Button Hill.
the Button Hill generator. We were waiting for more information, and we asked them to maybe have it at the senior center instead. So that project is sort of in a different place.
I believe they came back with firm quotes on the Button Hill project.
Yeah,
and the-
Yeah, I know
And it
there's a
wasn't-
room in there later on the agenda, but just from, if we're only looking at the chapter, which is where we're coming up with the dollars for, we have 3 projects here, not funded, that are 200,000, so they may make some difference, but, it's not like we're gonna be able to.
But it's probably not up to the Button Hill representatives that were here to propose changing it to the senior center.
right.
And somebody that runs the senior center should be the one asking for it, saying, hey, we need this, this is why.
Right.
We're not the ones to be either filling out that application ourselves, or to have the Button Hill folks do it.
And the reality is, we have folks who have said they were going to put some requests in and never have.
Right,
And so if we move just the things we have now to public hearing, there won't be anything left for them
Right.
to take a shot at. And, everyone's had the same amount of notice as to project availability. So,
Question? I need to be a little clear. The proposals are in amount to X, and we have Y amount of dollars to disperse. How much over are we right now? Could you say that again? Are we $200,000 over?
yes, if we were to say yes to every single thing that's been,
So that,
Not that we've approved.
not that we've
Well,
approved.
so we're going along here approving just about it.
I don't think we
And at
deny
what
it.
point are we saying, gee, we gotta not do something, so what people ask
I
people to
think
come
we're
in?
at that point.
Now,
We're at that point. Yeah,
So we're adding on to the hearing on July 11th, all today, we're adding all these on to the hearing, and we're over $200,000.
And then there'll be a vote by the committee later, after the public hearing, to decide yea or nay on each of those individuals.
and we
we'll have to
could,
weigh in what how the public feels about them.
right, and we could decide, oh, yeah, for the generator, we're willing to give 60, not
Right.
150, or whatever the number is. we could do that too.
Okay. Thank you.
Does it make sense to stop receiving requests until we know where we are on things? Because I don't like the feeling of, it seems like people are like, well, I don't want to make a decision on this because I don't know what's going to come in.
Right.
We can't make our decisions and say, well, I don't like this now, but if everything that comes in later is I don't like it, okay, maybe I'll vote for it. I think we need to just be looking at it. They came in first come, first serve, and
Yeah.
it's yes or no. So do we stop accepting applications until we've
I
gone
was
through everything?
gonna suggest that actually, that for now, until we have this next public hearing, I think we stop and just see where we're at. We're probably gonna end up with some random amount of money left over that is low, and probably have to find some place to spend that, but, because we do have to spend it off, on something, so, I think that's a good.
I know that
We don't ask Donna, we don't like to give it back.
But it does work out that we're at the end of the fiscal year now too, like just timing wise, it makes sense to take a break, accepting and just see where we're at and go through this process, this next step and see.
I mean, we're almost 4 months into receiving proposals. I
Yeah.
think at this point, if, someone hasn't brought us something,
Mhm.
they knew they were running the risk because we're pretty open
Yeah.
every meeting, Christina.
And the town has
tells us
had
where
these
we're at.
funds for a year now,
Mhm.
and we knew it was coming even before that, so anyone who's been, I think that's fair.
So
do anything formally with that?
can we continue to talk about the skids here before we move too far up?
Maybe we'll get to the public hearing, we'll just make an official motion about that. So. Any more about the skid steer? Is there,
Does everybody know what a skid steer is?
Yes.
I do. Make sure.
wait, now, did somebody make a motion and did we second it yet?
Nope.
No, okay, so I'll entertain a motion about the skid steer.
Second.
So is the motion to bring it to public
Yes.
hearing at the amount of $68,000? Okay. And that's your second? Okay, any more discussion about that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. All right, so that one will be on the agenda and we'll get public input on it. All right, moving on, ARPA 38, the installation of perimeter key location traffic cameras, which would be $220,000. And the request is made by the Board of Selectmen. And I know Mike McCoo is, like, that would be, I don't know, project manager, I don't know.
That is yet to be determined.
He's
So
the requester who brought it to the selectmen.
So it's coming from the Board of Selectmen, and hopefully you all had an opportunity to take a look at the information shared. So what I will tell you from the Board of Selectmen, this was not a unanimous vote of the Board of Selectmen. And the selectmen that did move forward to move this forward are doing so because we believe it's important to get public input on this. So as opposed to some of our other projects where you'll really hear us pushing, this is something we need, we really think it's going to benefit. We believe that we need to hear from the public and want to hear from the public. And so what this project would do as it's proposed would install perimeter cameras in several locations. There are 12 listed locations. They are all on state roads. So we're working with the state to determine some of the abilities. I can tell you, we can't put it on any state right of way. That is off the table from at least one email we've received so far. So make it a little more challenging. And so these are not on town roads. These are not in our neighborhoods. They wouldn't be looking at anyone's home. They would merely be monitoring, and I use monitoring because they don't know who would be monitoring. There are still some questions to be asked as to who would be able to monitor those, and who we would determine would, right? So that would have to be up to the town to decide. There would be subscription and service contract costs that could run us potentially $3,000 to $4,000 a year. We would have to add this into the work of our IT, which could potentially increase some IT costs on that end. I don't have any numbers for that. Maintenance and repairs, these dollars would purchase types of cameras. And on here, you see the different costs of camera A, B, and C if they were installed on existing poles. And but then after that, all of the maintenance costs would be on the town. So sorry, it is on there. All of the replacement costs and any maintenance costs, and I do not have numbers for those for you.
And I see Mike is here virtually with us. Mike, do you want to add any information to that?
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Just a couple clarifications. On the submission by the selectmen, it says that the no other funding was pursued for this. I'm not sure if that sort of explains the whole story. As was noted also in the application, I initially approached Erica. Actually, contrary to what it says in there, I approached Erica before the incident happened on Myrtle Road, a few months before that, and we had some discussion. It was in budget season, and she said that with the other things that were pressing that year, she didn't feel that it was a priority that year. And we were moving into the process of doing the committee and the funding for the emergency communication system. So that was a priority. And then the incident happened on Myrtle Road. In my mind, there were some opportunities that if we had a system like this, which we would not have in that case because it wouldn't have happened yet. But should we had a situation like that, when we had a system like this, there might have been value. There are a lot of the values that are detailed in the application or in the overview that's attached to the application. So there was an attempt, the next budget season also, to see if the selectmen would sponsor this. So there was an attempt to get funding by bringing it through the selectmen to a capital process. And it felt in both of those years that it wasn't a priority at the time. So I don't want people to think that I just conjured this up out of my head. The reason I'm behind this is because I've worked with systems like this in my workplace. I still think it has value. That's why I went to the selectmen. Similar to what you saw earlier with the Community Cares program, because I didn't believe I was a sponsor who could put it in. That's why I went to the selectmen. It would need to be something that has public works involvement and all this policy and all this. So that's kind of how we got here. Keep in mind, the pricing is sort of a menu. That's why it's detailed in the proposal as different types of cameras with different locations. So what was put together was if we took this particular vision, this is the cost. But as you can see, if you took each of those locations and used the least expensive camera type, you would probably cut the cost of the entire project in half, for example, or if you eliminated some locations. So it really could be an up to $220,000, depending on what the commission felt was right or what the townspeople felt was right. Whatever feedback or what money is left available. I don't know, does anyone have any questions? Anything else I can help to clarify about it?
Mike?
Yeah.
How is the signal transmitted from each of the cameras back to internet land for access? Do you have to purchase access at each camera location from, be it the cable company or whoever, to get that?
Yeah, they're typically located either on an independent pole near the utility lines or on a utility pole. And that way there's access into IP world. So they're IP communication based. And that's what allows for the greatest, the most secure control of the data and reliability of the data, the IP. So there would need to be infrastructure, which is included in that price, the typical infrastructure at each camera location to put a switch box on a pole or whatever. I did notice what Erica was mentioning about the state right of way. It is interesting that she was able to get someone to answer because I'm still having trouble getting DOT people to respond. I guess it depends who you ask because they are being installed in the state right of ways all over the place. The one in front of Dunkin' Donuts is in the state right of way. Now, of course, that was installed by DOT. So of course they can put it in their right of way. But there are cameras all over the place. If you, like I've said before, if you drive through the University of Connecticut, there are cameras all over the place and they're almost all in state right of ways. There is some way to do it, but I don't know how hard it is for us to find the right people. I just, you know, I'm still digging on that one too.
Hey, Mike, this is Tom. How you doing?
Good.
As we've talked before, there's lots of crossing and stuff. It's a small town. I think I just wanted to clarify, I read your communication, I believe, with the Board of Selectmen. This is Mike McCoo, citizen, right? Putting this forth to the Board of Selectmen, not, the Board of Finance didn't approve this or anything, right?
That's correct. It hasn't come to the Board of Finance.
Okay.
It's been discussed as it's sort of a general topic. It's come up, but it's never been like a item of business.
I just trying to
Doesn't
parse.
typically sponsor its own, doesn't
No,
typically sponsor its own public works or capital projects.
yeah, I didn't think so. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, I brought it to the selectmen, to Erica as a citizen because it's something that I have worked with in my workplace.
Thanks, got it.
Because I think it has value to the community. And obviously, as we all know, Erica is crowned with the honor of being our police chief too. So, you know, it seemed like the right place for it to go.
Right, no, thanks.
I go to the academy next week.
Mike, I got a question for you. It's Troy.
I tried.
So you keep saying Public Works, or what like benefit do you see it helping us at Public Works? Like, is there anything, or am I just not like reading into it too much, or?
Well, what's in the proposal, if you read through the proposal, it's discussed in there, being able to see road conditions. So some of the other organizations or towns that have this, they have a tiered system where like police have a certain level of access, and then maybe the public works director and a town manager have a certain level of access. So for example, in your case, you know, if you were in one of those iffy weather situations where like it's cold down in the valleys and warm up on the top of the hill or the reverse, you could easily, just like some of us do from home, we look on the DOT traffic cameras from our own home, from the internet to see what the highways look like. You would be able to open right on your phone, wherever you are, even if you're out of town or at your own home, you'd be able to look on your phone and see what road conditions look like. If there's a bad weather incident, like, you know, wind and trees are down and people are saying, you know, if you get a phone call, there's a roadblock, trees are down, it might be in an area where you could see, you know, traffic backing up or things like that. Those examples.
All right, because I mean, with the road conditions, it's hard. The state uses different material than what we do. They have more manpower. So the road conditions on our roads are always different versus the state roads. So I don't, you know, that's, okay.
And I'm torn with this, and I see its value and what its intent is. I almost see the town of Wellington picking up the tab for the state to monitor some of these areas. And we don't have even a resident state trooper and any kind of police force to monitor some of the situational things that it would be used for. And so the town of Wellington would be providing the funds for them to do so. So, and I think I spoke to some of these things at the Board of Selectmen, which is why it's important for me that in order to fully embrace this, and I'll tell you that the Board of Selectmen, again, agreed to move this forward so that we could hear from the public, so it could be part of a public hearing. Still had lots of questions on our end, but I think it's important to hear from the public. This is, I think, could potentially be a controversial concept for some of our residents, and their idea of what the cameras would be used for. And so I think it's important to hear from them.
Erica, I want to comment on, I think that's very accurate, and the public input is really critical on this, because there are concerns, and I would answer anything I could as to privacy and things like that. That was, as you noted, discussed at the selectmen's meeting. So I think it's very important that the public understand what this can and can't do. And as far as us funding something for the state's use, I get that point, but this is an opportunity where maybe it isn't as pleasing to have this in CIP. Maybe because this is a grant where we have an opportunity to fund it in a different manner. It's still taxpayer money, but it's a different manner. Maybe this is more palatable. I would also say that there are direct benefits that I see. The big motivation I have for pushing for this is the benefit to Willington specifically, and the citizens of Willington, in addressing concerns that you see talked about a lot online, with things like the repeated cycles of break-ins of cars, particularly in the north end of town. We know from the police cases that have been resolved, and from the advice from the police, the cars that transport the people into the area are often coming off of Interstate 84. So this adds an investigative tool for the police. The police do, even Troop C does have access to other towns' cameras. They will log into them when something's going on. So, that to me is what I see as the biggest benefit to the taxpayers in Willington. It's quality of life. Be clear, I get nothing out of this. There's not a penny for me in it. I'm not connected to the companies that would potentially bid on it. This does nothing for me at all, except I think it's valuable for our town for quality of life. That's all.
So Mike and Erica, since you're here now talking about it, Mike, I assume you'll be the point guy probably at the hearing, maybe? Or
Well, it's the selectmen's, they're the sponsor.
Right, so the Board of Selectmen
Yeah.
took this, and I think I would be comfortable with Mike speaking to his proposal to the Board of Selectmen, because again, the Board of Selectmen didn't say, our vote was to move this forward so that there could be a public hearing. So there's a little bit, it's not 100% buy-in by the Board of Selectmen,
Okay.
but we want to hear from the public. So I would be comfortable with Mike speaking to
I see.
his proposal.
Got it.
But there's some things that we would have to address long before I think I could say, yeah, let's tie up $200,000. And the security piece is that. And while I respect Mike's use in maybe his future workplaces, I think it's important that we don't have just a citizen speaking to the right to privacy part of these cameras. We need somebody to be able to speak to some of that. And I think that's what we're going to hear from the public, and that may be a concern from the public.
Are you ready
We heard that a little bit just at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
for public hearing? Are you ready as first select woman?
We're ready to hear, again, I don't know that I'm ready to vote and say, yes, this is what we want to spend these
Right.
dollars, but I am ready to
But
hear.
you're okay going to
Yes, I want to have some open public dialogue with our residents on such an endeavor.
thanks.
Eric, are you comfortable with the ongoing expenses for this project?
No,
We're
not prepared for that, no.
Do you know what they are?
well, we're just starting, Mike got us some numbers, so no, I don't know what all of those are, and they are going to be great. Again, it depends on which cameras, if this moves forward, which cameras we choose, and what, we'll know about what the replacement is based on the value today. Mike did get us information that would be looking at about $3,000 to $4,000 in probably minimum software costs. There would be some minimum data bandwidth issues and through our IT. So we're still working on gathering some of that information at the same time. And so from the selectman standpoint, let's start the conversation of putting cameras around town, regardless of the cost, I think is the starting point for this conversation. And I think it's important to note, and we will again in public hearing, if it goes that far, these are not on any of the town roads. So unless you happen to have a home on one of these roads that it could potentially see, this isn't looking at, maybe a car break-in in your neighborhood, so to speak.
Erica, just one correction. Just one correction, I'm sorry. I believe, I don't have the proposal in front of me because I'm managing screens here, but I believe there's one location that's on a town road, just for clarity.
So the Losi Road at the west on ramp, technically, we're talking
Well,
about.
maybe, but no, I thought was there one on Village Hill at the Stafford line?
No.
No? Okay, maybe that didn't make what I envisioned when I put it together. Sorry.
So, so there'd be some, questions people would have, or maybe some expectations. And so I think there's a lot more conversation before the selectmen are ready to say, even if you were to approve it, yes, we're actually going to move forward and spend this. But I think it's important to hear from our residents.
Having said that, I'll move that we send Article 38 to public hearing.
There a second?
I'll second.
And just to clarify, Tom, you lean at the amount of $220,000. Yeah. Okay. And-
So we hear, so just,
If we took the proposal as
Yeah.
it stood today, that's about what it would cost.
Mhm. All right, any more discussion or questions about it? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor of moving to public hearing, you say yes.
yes,
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, so we will move forward to the public hearing. So I'll put it on the list. Thank you, Mike.
thanks.
Okay, so moving on to unfinished business, just everyone should be able to read the updates on the previously funded requests. I had asked everyone who was a manager of all of these different projects to let me know if there's any change to what's on here. And this is the most updated status on everything. Is there any questions on any of those?
So I'll simply add, if you look across the room, you'll see some of our devices for the town
Oh,
and staff
great.
have started to come in.
Oh, great, that's what that is.
That's
awesome.
what those are the actual laptops.
Okay, great.
So,
All right. Moving on to the updates on a previously heard and tabled requests. So these, we don't have to make a discussion, no discussion if necessary, but if somebody had more information about any of these items, then maybe we would be compelled to move it to the next public hearing. And the first one's ARPA 30, the emergency generator and direct emergency call line. That one, I don't think Don's here. Oh, you're here.
Yep, we're both here.
Yeah, okay. So do you want to talk about that?
Love to, yes.
Great.
Lori Bradley, Executive Director, Button Hill. This is Pete Kosachek, who's Maintenance Supervisor.
Mhm.
We have sent off updated quotes to you.
Yep.
You received them.
Mhm.
So it's considerably less than the 200,000 by about almost 70,000, which is good
Right.
news.
Right.
The two generators that we're talking about would supply heat for Button Hill. They were not ever considered to be tying into the senior center. That would be impractical and extraordinarily costly to cross a parking lot to hook everyone together. Those generators would be located, those two generators would be located in between two sets of buildings. So there's 4 buildings up there, just in case anyone doesn't know. They're numbered 10, 12, 14, 16. One generator would be in between 10 and 12. The other would be between 14 and 16. It would supply heat to the units if there were a power outage. They already have water in that case, but that would enable the elderly residents to stay in place during a power outage in the wintertime. So that's kind of crucial.
Mhm.
As far as the alarms go, we did get a price per building. That total came to 13,000 and change per building, which comes to 53,720. Those alarms would be for the call for aids to be reportable, so that if somebody fell in their bathroom or their bedroom, that's where they're located, they could simply pull the call for aid switch, and those alarms would report to the reporting center, wherever it be, and then the fire department would be called. Those are pretty critical needs, I think. Pete and I also run the Coventry Housing Authority, and we ran into this many, many years ago where we had just a buddy system. And unfortunately, we lost residents due to that buddy system because it wasn't such a buddy-friendly system. You cannot hear those alarms. Pete can speak to that. Give them the example if you would.
I was on property one day doing some work and a tenant came up to me stating there was a noise. I went and investigated and come to find out it was the actual alarm going off. He just called it a noise. And the tenant's cleaner had pulled the cord by accident. But she did not, even the tenant herself did not know her alarm was going off. What we have right now is it's just a,
Dismal.
that's exactly about what it sounds like. And this person was a tenant there and he came down to find me. He didn't call the fire department or anything, just said there's a noise. So he didn't even know that it was an alarm going off to call for help. So this is really needed for these tenants. And for the generator, what it does is it powers up the furnaces in all 4 buildings. It gives them one light in their apartment. Because we're a public water system, we automatically have water. You know, we're on the same line as town hall and center school.
Yeah.
What it will do is give them heat and it'll give them light just to be able to stay in their apartment. And hooking it up to the senior center, we're 2 different entities.
Right.
So we're looking at powering for the tenants, and that would change the size of the generator and the use. So that's
So the
why.
call for aid request is 53,000 and the generator is,
They're 38,000 change a piece, so that came to 76,876. The total, I believe, is 130,596. And our original request was up to 200,000 because we
okay.
hadn't gotten our quotes in.
I'm just gonna fix it in my spreadsheet.
Yeah,
It makes the
because
numbers
what
better.
was the 92 one? I thought emails of the total for the 2. It's coming in at 92,158.
There's 2 generators. When I looked at the original estimate, it looked to me like he had quoted out those 2, but that's per generator, so times 2.
Okay.
What do you have for a fuel supply for the generators?
Propane.
We already have it up there.
What is your runtime if the power goes out to run those 2 generators based on the amount of fuel you have?
One time roughly would be, because the furnaces also run on propane, size of the thing, we would be a good week and a half. And talking with the generator. We would have to
That's if
fine
your
tune
tanks
that.
are full.
What's that?
That's if your tanks are full.
Yes.
So if the power went off when they were 1/3 full, it would be. a few
Well,
days.
we're constantly monitoring that, and the company we have, they monitor it, and I'm constantly monitoring it. And I do the same thing at Coventry Housing, because we have the same system, well, we would have the same system of propane generator, and these are bigger tanks than what we have at Coventry. So it's a constant monitor, the company we have, because then it becomes emergency,
Priority.
knowing that it's a generator, that then they pay more attention to what your tanks are at than just saying, okay, it's supplying heat.
And during a critical need, it would be a priority fill.
Right, would also become a emergency fill. So then it doesn't matter which company I use. I come up there, I say we're low, I call the company we have right now, and they say we can't get there under an emergency power outage. I can call any other propane company and have them come and fill our tank as an emergency, which that would be with a power outage.
Okay, great. So the request, so just to summarize, the original request was $200,000. Now it's 100, I put it in as 131,000, which, and it is tabled at the moment. So if someone had more questions, they could ask them, or if somebody wanted to make a motion to either move it to public hearing or
What's the size of the generator?
I think it's 30K. I'm just double checking. Yeah, it's 30K, 30 kilowatt.
Would that run anything in like the summertime, like their AC units or anything? Like, I know you said 1 light per unit, but what if, I mean, what happens if we have a tropical storm and there's no power for It won't run a refrigerator.
It won't run anything.
So basically, you're just saying it's for heat only.
It's for, well, I would have to talk to the generator guy and for transfer switches of what we're using. We also have, now solar doesn't matter, but that could be discussed with the generator company. Right now, we were looking at, because the biggest time we had problems, especially at Coventry, was no heat. Because in the summertime, you can still open up your windows up there. A lot of apartments have a good cross breeze, the top ones do. They get a real good cross breeze, because a lot of the tenants up there don't even run their AC now. Some do, some don't. But the main concern was for the tenants in the wintertime, because that's when the biggest issue is in the wintertime. And that's what we're finding at Coventry. That's the biggest issue is wintertime for the heat of not being able to stay in their apartments.
And we have lost power up there in the wintertime. And the worst case scenario is when you get a tenant's child calling you because they're out of state and they say, what are you gonna do with my parent now that there's no heat up there? I mean, it is independent living. However, they kind of count on you to make sure that they can stay there. So we don't have an emergency place to put people. We just don't. So having heat in there, that's tremendous.
So what are you exactly providing power to? 100% of the functions of the units?
No. Furnaces for heat. And there's already a light in there that would be hooked up to the generator. They did that upon build. When we first.
Are you having to reconfigure the electrical system to do that?
No, we don't have to reconfigure the electrical system. It's just a generator that hooks up to the.
Oh, you mean the power of the whole unit?
Yeah.
That would be
That would be expensive.
a huge generator.
No, I'm asking,
Do we
with
have
the
to
proposal that you have,
No.
you're specifically providing power to certain parts of the center.
Yes.
No. it's
Well,
not-
it
it's not
goes to the
senior center.
utility rooms.
Give me a minute, I've bought probably 30 generators in my life.
Okay,
You don't have to upgrade any electrical, it's already there.
to tie in?
To those specific units. You're gonna send the power to those specific systems in the independent living.
You're sending it to the furnace, which is in a utility room. So that it's powering stuff that's in the utility room.
What about
Does that
lights,
clarify it?
refrigerator, what about
No,
just the furnace, just heat?
The utility room and one light in each apartment.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe it will last a week, yeah. Pretty good.
So that, from my perspective, that doesn't help the residents any other time, right? So we're talking about only specific heated times. And I think Troy asked about AC because our last long-term power outage was in very warm weather at the beginning of August. And it was, I think we were out 5-6 days. And so they wouldn't have access to their refrigerator or a way to keep things cool. And
air
that kind of
quality.
heat, air quality is a big, that week was a real concern for folks. So I'm not opposed to the concept, but it's a lot of money for a small number of residents just for winter related issues. But if we take them separate, the colonnade, I think is something that probably should have been put in when the buildings were done. And I applaud Lori for championing that once the organization came in to take over. But the generator, I have some concerns about and look forward to hearing what members of the public have to say.
So is that a motion to move it to public hearing?
Say that again.
Oh,
Just a question that we talked about a little bit before, but I just wanted to be clear regarding the ownership of the building and the town's responsibility for providing this or future upgrades to the building versus being independently privately owned, so to speak, from another organization.
mhm.
Is the town on the hook for doing this?
the ownership is the housing authorities, not the towns. It's a political subdivision of the town. I would assume as it is in every other town. It's an entity that was appointed by the town. And going forward, we have our own budget. We're the ones that are responsible for maintenance. We're the responsible party for upkeep. Any of that, the Wellington Housing Authority is responsible for that, not the town.
And into the lease that was the document between the town and the housing authority specifically said that they could not come back to the town for using CIP or town budgeted funds. So I think this is a little extraordinary in that instance, but any repairs and maintenance would be through rent. Yep, correct. So if you
That's
wanted to
already
put this in, your income would be to increase rent. And that was determined, I think the year maybe of COVID or just prior to COVID, that budget season was when they came back to the town asking at least for the call and aid. I can't remember if generators were on the list. And we're told that CIP was not an option. So we're not on the hook, but these funds that are available to the town that can be used for nonprofits and such would then be eligible.
Do these two projects, the generator and the call for aid, have to be paired, or can they be considered independently?
I would assume they could be considered independently, and certainly I would be willing to go back to Tower Generator and ask them the difference in cost to include maybe one or two things per apartment, you know, a refrigerator, air conditioning. Revise that proposal.
I think the push
It's
comes
pretty
to
quick
shove
in
and
a
we have to
turnaround.
say no to something. You know, could we say no to the generator and yes to the call for aid, or vice versa, or?
Sure, put them in
both?
independently, because I'd rather have one, you know, a chance of having one than a chance of having none.
I'd rather have them be considered on their own merit
Yeah,
separately
that's fine.
than to say, no, these were
I would agree to that.
together and we have to
Yeah.
approve them, you know, all or nothing.
I don't think we have to approve anything all or nothing. We could give only where they're asking for $200,000, right, in the original ask. And we could say now, especially as we look at the rest of our requests and say, okay, we have 10 requests and we may not be able to fund any of them in full, and where, you know, we'll provide X dollars and then you wouldn't be responsible for the rest. So I think that's up to us to determine. So I think you're asking if they can be separated, yes, if they would
We
so be
submitted them as
supportive
two
of them
separate
being
quotes.
individual.
You can easily call one ARPA 30-A and one
Yeah.
ARPA 30-B. I can easily change that in our system.
And we know what those costs are individually?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, I would say 30A would be the call for aid button, and that's 53,000, and then 30B would be the emergency generator at 79,000. I can put it in at.
Good.
Yeah.
So I will make a motion to move to public hearing, ARPA 30A emergency generator. or the
Call
other way around.
button.
Call button, direct emergency call line, and ARPA 30B emergency generator.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor? Bringing those to public hearing? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, we'll put that on the agenda too. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item was the Historical Society Archival Storage, and Mark Cinda is here to give us an update on that.
Hi, Cinda 216 Newtown Road. I was just wondering if I could amend our request. I neglected to really look at the electrical and lighting needs of that space. And I'd like to amend that request $5,000 more from 10 to 15,000.
Okay. Put it in. Right now.
I looked online to see if I could amend it. but
Yeah, no.
It wasn't friendly.
Yeah.
No.
No.
It's really just submit and that.
Okay, and do you have anything else to say about it, or?
No, like I said, I went over the being able to reuse that space because it's a dirt floor.
Mhm.
And I did neglect to look at lighting and upgrade electrical in that area because there isn't much of anything in the garage. And also take into consideration if there was any damage or repair work that had to be done prior to the the concrete of the floor and the replacement of the doors.
Is there any lighting in that, in the area now?
Minimal,
Okay, so that's why you need more
yeah, it's
new
like
electrical work to add some more
up
lights. Okay, I
against,
just
up
wanna make sure I
against
understood
this
that.
building, the house wall versus out into the garage.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Any comments? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move ARPA 31, Historical Society Archival Storage, request increase to $15,000 to public hearing.
One second.
Any more discussion?
So that's the whole project, the floor.
Yeah,
lights,
we have,
Or,
if you've seen in the mail, you've seen
Yes.
a flyer come out. My voice went bad about 3 weeks ago. I
that's all right.
had some virus and this is what I'm left with. But we had a fundraiser going out, we've got an ongoing project to bring up the ADA compliance. And I didn't tie these two things together because we've already pushed that ball and started that ball rolling. And I didn't think it would be, how do you tie them together? How do you confuse it? We'd already had some funds donated and so far the donations have been coming in. And hopefully we can get that compliance stuff done.
Great. All right, so any other questions? All right, so all in favor? Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? Okay, that'll be on the agenda.
Thank you.
It's gonna be a long public hearing.
It sure is. Split it into two, we have to-
Yeah, maybe. Okay, the next item is ARPA 33, flags, grave markers, and monument repair. And Ed's still here.
I'm still here.
$6,500 for that.
Right. After the last meeting, I went back to our executive board
Mhm.
and we discussed it and what's happening as far as the flags for the cemetery and the grave markers. Those are specifically for graves that where there are veterans, where there are no markers or flags now.
Mhm.
We have 3 people from the foundation that have been going out and doing surveys in conjunction with the cemetery people
Mhm.
to see how many graves there are that don't have markers. And we're finding out there's quite a few. And basically what that part of the grant money was to get those up to stuff. In other words, make everything current.
Mhm.
What would happen at the end of this is then we would take the information that we got because we're coming up with an accurate count of how many military graves there are in our cemeteries. And we would give that to the town because the town is taking care of that. So there could be an additional expense coming to the town for these grave markers. Whether we use the ARPA funds to upgrade the graves or not, we're still gonna have that paper coming to the town. So there's still gonna be a future cost to the town for flags and grave markers. Hopefully, once we put the grave markers in, we won't need any, and we'll just need for newer graves that are going in.
Mhm.
So that's what that portion is for.
So if the town's doing it, I'm still confused as to why we're giving you money to do something the town's already doing.
I don't understand what you're
So
saying.
what the flags you're asking for money for are just for the cemetery?
Those, the part of, one of the line items there was flags for the cemetery and markers. Those flags and markers for the cemetery that we're asking for are for graves that don't have them now. Because that information isn't available. You don't have it, the cemetery committee doesn't even have it. And we found out about it when we started going through the cemeteries and looking at the graves that are there. And we're finding, this is where I get calls. I got a call last week from your office, from somebody saying, they called me, they want to know why there's not a marker or a flag on my such and such grave. And I get these all the time. I mean, nobody is doing this. So what we did is our group got together and what we're doing is we're going out and we're finding out where they're deficient. I mean,
I still, once again, there needs to be some conversation between your organization that's just kind of created itself and the town. There's no conversation here. So you say people are calling you.
Yeah.
They're not calling, they're not coming through our office.
Well, Kelsey called me to
So
tell me the person, and I've gotten.
did they ask for you?
Yes.
Right, because, so I'm gonna, this is a separate conversation that I think the town and your organization need to sit down to understand what it is that you're trying to do for the town and how it works with the funds that the town is doing. I think I said this at our last meeting, there's still.
But the town isn't doing anything that we're asking money for. The flags on the road, we got through raising money ourselves.
Those
The
flags
flags
have come through a flag committee that was created by the Board of Selectmen.
We're not touching that at all.
So you want more money for the roads for the town, so people are sending donations to the town for those flags. There's a little bit of confusion that doesn't make, I'm missing something there. So we have a flag committee and people send in donations to us and those go to purchase those flags and those poles.
So-
And you're saying you're gonna purchase more of those. But the town is already doing that through donations to the town's flag committee. But you've now created a new organization that you want to take over
Well,
that.
first of all, our organization has a federal EIN number. We have a current, I have paperwork showing that we are currently have impending status for 501(c)(3).
I'm not arguing any of that, but there's no correlation with the town and the work that the town's already doing to help understand how the town's funds and these funds can be used so that there's no overlap. So we're properly funding all of these things and not. I know you look confused,
But the
but
thing is.
the flags
town-
out here
the
are
town is
already
not-
being
The town is
funded.
not funding the flags on the road.
They've come from donations that come into the
Right,
town.
and those donations have started coming into us now.
So then the town will get out of that business
That's
and
correct.
disband. But do you see where you've just started something and taken away from the town? There's been no discussion. I mentioned it last time. I'd like there to be some discussion so that we know. It's a town function, something is being handled by the town and you've taken it over on your own without any discussion from the town.
But we've been doing it right along. If we don't put the flags up, who's gonna put the flags up?
There was a flag committee born of the Board of Selectmen. We organized a flag committee that was handling those. Your organization came
And when's the
completely
last time you
separate.
had a meeting?
We didn't have a meeting. It's not,
Then
they
how
were,
did you organize a committee if you didn't even have a meeting?
they had, the committee was Phil Monty, Joe Rondo, and I believe Joe Chicky. So if they created, you with them created a different organization. I'm not opposed to that, Ed. I just think there needs to be some organization between the parties. So that we
Well,
make
the
sure
reason-
we're
The reason
properly,
we created the organization is because if those three people stop putting the flags up, who's gonna put them up? Are you gonna go out on 74 and put all those flags up?
this is.
I mean, we've asked you in the past, you said, well, I don't have the people to do it, and it's not my job.
Listen, and these were some of the things that came up when we created that organization, and I'm not opposed to what you're doing, what you're saying, or your organization. I want that to be stated, be clear. There needs to be discussion, so there's understanding. If someone sends us a donation for the town, I don't want them then to think they should be sending a donation somewhere else. We're funneling money through two different areas now, and we just need to streamline the process.
But there has to be a point in time when that stops happening. And the thing is, none of this.
Yes, and if we don't have a
None of this has
conversation,
been documented on your side.
we document all of the donations, correct, Donna? They all go through downstairs. Someone makes the donation for flags. Phil Monty buys flags. He brings a receipt for funds to go through that. So this happened this spring.
We have a fund to account for the donations and the expenditures when replacement flags are purchased.
That happened this year in the last couple of months.
Actually, they buy the flags and then they submit for reimbursement.
Reimbursement, correct.
And what's in that fund? Currently,
I don't have it memorized, but I'll look it up.
from what I understand, it's less than it's around $100,
Probably is.
which is enough to buy 2 flags,
So
2 whole flags.
just listening to it, so it sounds like no one's disputing that there's a need for funds to buy flags and these
We're-
grave markers.
we're
It's just
looking-
They were coming here and now they're going there.
We're looking as an organization, first of all, we formed to make sure that the memorial and the thing in front of the town hall, the honor roll, and that stuff is maintained.
Mhm.
Right now, the one in front of the town hall needs repair. The town's not repairing it. There's no money in the budget to do it. So we've taken it on our own because people are calling me saying it's in disrepair. Are you gonna do it?
No, but I think instead of starting a new organization, you have a conversation with the town when you get those phone calls. That's all I'm saying. I just think there needs to
But
be.
how many other organizations in town like the um, the people that get, I'm trying to remember, because the BFW donates to them, the Scholarship Foundation, did they meet with the town before they formed?
No, they didn't, but we have money, so people were bringing monies here. We're under the assumption we still have this committee, we know who puts them up, we take in the money, we give the money when they buy flags. If your organization is gonna take it over, that's fine. We're going to dissolve that fund and the town won't have anything to do with it, and I'm fine with that. I think there's an overlap of what you're doing and what we were already doing, and just some conversation, and I said that at our last meeting.
We can't effectively say that, yes, this is gonna happen until we're sure that we have funds to maintain it, to get it started.
Well, if that's what you're gonna do, we're gonna be done. We're gonna be out of the flag committee
Exactly.
business.
The only thing that you're maintaining, and I'll warn you right now, as far as the cemetery goes, what's gonna happen if all of a sudden the scouts dissolve, which is a likely thing that could happen. Now, all of a sudden, you have nobody to do the.
Well, you don't know that, so they're not gone, and when that happens, there will be discussion about how we can continue to maintain those, so I think there are avenues there.
That's where our organization will come in.
And
Because we
again,
have
I'm not
volunteers.
opposed to that, I think it would be prudent if this conversation happens, not here, and before, and I'll just state it once again, so that we understand, I wanna make sure that we're not duplicating services and duplicating funds.
We don't.
If somebody called my office and wanted to donate money for the flags on the road, they would be directed to make a donation to the flag committee here. You're now openly advertising for them to donate somewhere else. I think an average citizen would be confused at where money would go, and it's all for the same purpose.
We've
So,
already taken in donations.
yes, I understand that. While money's coming here and money's coming out of here, so it's just not clean.
So, okay, so the amount of $6,500, whether or not it goes into this town fund or into your account, probably doesn't really make a difference. It's all gonna get spent on the same
It's to
thing.
maintain what's there and
Right,
to
but-
make it whole.
But it's just, who came up with the $6,500 number? You guys did,
We did.
yeah.
We went out and we identified certain areas that needed to be done. One of the things that's in there is signage for Memorial Day and Veterans Day. This past Memorial Day, I had about 30 people call me and say, well, gee, I didn't know the town was having a Memorial Day service because there were no signs up to tell us that it was happening.
Mhm.
And we have the same thing for Veterans Day. People don't know what's there unless we go out word of mouth, because
That's what
I
we
granted you put it on your site, but not everybody's looking on your
Right,
site.
but that's how, we're not doing something, we didn't take away notice to people in those instances. I think that's
But
important for you to
people aren't
know.
getting the notice.
But I think that's important to note that we didn't dial back any of the way we notice people about our activities.
People are coming to me and saying, well, why wasn't there a sign put up on the town green saying that there was gonna be Memorial Day service this coming Saturday or this Monday or whatever it was? Why didn't the town? And they're asking me, why didn't the town do it? Well, it's not my job, but now I guess it is.
No, it isn't,
Well,
that you could communicate with the town.
I think what Erica's saying is the town has never done that.
Right.
But, so it's not like it wasn't done, but it wasn't, this year was a special year that it wasn't done, but yeah, probably for
It
all
wasn't-
the things that
It
go on. we
wasn't
could-
done in the past either.
That's right.
Right.
And
that's
then
what
we're
I'm
not
saying.
opposed to doing it. People
So-
are looking for something different. Let's have a conversation.
But people drive around, they don't necessarily go into places, they see signs. We've used it with the VFW. The VFW, since we started putting our own signs out, we've added on 10 new members,
Mhm.
which is 10 more than we've had in the last 15 years. So we know that the signage works,
And that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
but that's why this is what we're asking for.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't want to support this effort, that's fine. But all I'm saying is let it go to the town, let the town decide.
Mhm,
Here's a question.
mhm.
Out of the $6,500, how much of that is to get the cemeteries up to snuff in terms of,
I don't
Get it
know, it's
on the
on the
markers
list here. I
and
don't have
flags.
that with me. It should be on the list. There's a separate line item.
Okay, so we're at. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I can't answer that. The paperwork I have just says $6,500 to replace damaged and missing flag markers, repairs to monuments.
It might be.
I don't think I saw it on the list, but
I might not have sent it to you guys.
I think I put it right off, so maybe I missed the attachment.
There was supportive documentation I put with the original request. It had everything itemized.
Let's see. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so reusable signage should be split on Memorial Day or Veterans Day, displaying the time, date, and location, $300. Placement of flags for the Veterans Memorial, $700. Place flags that are displayed on the telephone poles, $3,000. Rent of service flags to be used on Memorial Day and Veterans Day, $380. Cemetery grave flags from Valley Forge Flag Company, $700. And
Yes.
grave markers for veterans that do not have one, $420. Repairs that need to be made to the honor roll at the Old Town Hall, $1,000. And that's what adds up to the $6,500.
Is this gonna be an every year cost? Like, who's gonna fund this after? So you just need the initial money to get started, and then you're hoping that it's.
Yeah, what happens is we want to bring everything up so it's current. And then what we're doing is we're setting up GoFundMe sites and we're taking active donations that we'll take in and we will track and use those for expenses from here on in.
So you just need to get started, basically. That's
Right.
what you're looking for.
It sounds, Christina, it sounds like it's gonna be money well spent, so maybe if the relationship between the Board of Selectmen and the flag budget and the selectmen budget is the obstacle, maybe, is that right?
I don't think it's an obstacle. I just want to make sure we understand. There's been zero
Maybe
conversation.
you could make that happen, and then so that the responsibility, we could make it happen, so the responsibility goes to the.
Well, as far as conversation, Erica,
Because
I've
there's
talked with
some
you
will.
back in March about this.
We didn't talk about this, Ed.
We've been talking, every time I saw you
We
someplace.
can have
I
a, we
talked
can have a
about it.
conversation outside of this meeting, I think is warranted.
Another mechanism for moving forward perhaps is the Cemetery Association has a line item in the town budget. I think it's
For
coming
$2,000.
$1,000 or $2,000.
Yeah, 2,000.
That within the cemeteries themselves, if you needed additional money for flags and you weren't able to fundraise enough money, that you could potentially go through that route. Obviously, it has to go through Board of Finance and for approval and all that sort of thing, but the line item is there and the
What we want to,
Cemetery
what we want to
Association
do
purchase it.
is we want to take all the graves that currently don't have anything. And we want to just bring them up to snuff. We want to make sure that there's markers on them and there's flags on them. Because right now, there's probably about 30% of the graves out in the cemeteries that don't have anything on them. And nobody else is doing it, so my guys got together, the members of our foundation got a group together, and they've been out and they've been walking through through the cemeteries. I mean, I have samples here of what they did. These are all graves that have nothing on them. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I mean, I've got about 20 sheets here.
I'd like to make a motion to send it to $6,500 to public hearing, and then maybe like in between, there could be communication with whatever needs to happen. so that everything is, all the questions be answered, it seemed like that could happen before the hearing. Okay,
I'll second that.
All right, any more discussion about it?
Yeah.
Oh, so the motion is to bring it to public hearing and, but for there to be a discussion in between so that when we get to public hearing, there's a clear plan.
Right, and part of that would be, one is obviously the expenditures, which you have pretty well laid out, I think. But the other is the out years of where the responsibility and or fundings are gonna come from and go to. So people could ask those questions at the public hearing. Okay, next year or the year after that, you need some more flags, you know. Do you expect to have, who knows what you offer fundraising money? Hopefully you have a lot, and I'll take care of it. But I think this will get them caught up to where they need to be in terms of repairs and filling in the cemetery and stuff like that.
And our main concern is the preservation of the memorials in town. That's our main, that's what our definition is, even to the federal government. That's what we are to do. We are maintaining the veterans memorials in the town. And we're making sure that they continue forever. That's why we started the foundation, and well, to be honest with you, we don't have to try to get members. People come up to us and we've been signing them up. I have applications. There are people that have signed up for it. And what we're doing is these are the public. And if the scouts cease to exist, then we have an army of people that we're going to be able to use to do things, and we'll just have a work session and go through the cemetery or whatever, or do the flags on the roads or whatever.
Yep.
But right now, all of that work is being done by us. We're doing all the work.
Right.
When you use the term veteran, is that anybody that was served in the military?
Anybody that served at all, whether they were in a foreign war or they were just stationed in Fort Dix, New Jersey, it doesn't matter. This is for all veterans.
It's
We do
independent
not-
of the VFW.
We do not have any distinction or any towards any group.
Good, thank you.
It's separate from the VFW.
It's separate from the VFW. This is not, the VFW doesn't even enter into this. The only thing the VFW did is when the Veterans Memorial was originally being built, we donated $3,500 towards its construction.
All right, are we ready to vote? Okay, so all in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, so it'll be on the public hearing,
Okay,
but we encourage you to.
well, I'd like to
We'll
find
set
out,
up a time.
can you set up let's put us on
You
an
just
agenda
give-
or something? I don't
Give
know how
Kelsey
it
a call
works.
and we'll set up a time you and I can sit down and talk.
All right, and I'll let my people know, and our executive committee will meet with you.
Okay. That's the end of, thanks for coming in. Ed. That is the end of our previously heard and tabled, which they've all been moved to the public hearing. So now the next one was updates on the previously heard and approved to the public hearing. If there's no discussion, if nothing's changed, we have ARPA 1718, which is the walking track improvements for $196,979. ARPA 20, the furnace for the firehouse for $20,000. ARPA 28, technology upgrades at the senior center, which was on the agenda last public hearing and actually.
Right, I had a family matter and I couldn't make it.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, that will be on the next public hearing again.
okay,
The retention bonus plan, ARPA 32 for $32,250. And then the storage box at DPW for evictions, which is $6,000. They're all on the agenda. And I just did all the math. There are $726,000 worth of requests going on this agenda for the next public hearing. And we only have, as of today, there might be a little bit more, $583,982. So there's about $142,000 that we're not going to be able to award amongst all of these projects, which there are several. So that's something for everyone to think about. So we can't say yes to every single thing at fully funded, so.
Can I ask the commission a question?
Mhm.
What happens if the town says yes to all
Well, we can't,
We said, the board says yes.
of them? Oh, I mean, at the public
We
hearing.
take,
yeah.
they get to come.
Well, the town can come and speak to the other things, but the town doesn't vote. It's this commission votes. And so
Oh,
we
okay.
know, we're keeping track of all the numbers. We can't approve more than we have. So that's why we have to be careful. Some things we might only fund partially, some things we might not fund at all. Some things might get pulled. You never know what's gonna happen. So yeah, that's gonna be the hard work that we have to do. It's cut 142,000 out of all.
And just for your information, one reason why we had the town collecting money for us is because when we started selling the pavers, we had to have a place for it to go.
Mhm.
And we weren't set
Right.
up, we weren't even in existence at that time, even
Yeah.
though we still maintained the Veterans Memorial.
Yeah, and that happens a lot in different, organizations over time, how there's a need something needs to get done, and there's only one way legally that the money can come in and go out, and then management wise, it's different because it just depends on what volunteers you have and who's available to do whatever thing. And all of that is changes over time. So it sounds like we're at a juncture where that's gonna
Right.
change. So you just need to formalize it is all. So,
Okay, thank you.
okay. And then the next thing is close. Yeah, well, the opportunity to call public hearing.
No, you missed.
Oh,
Request to
oh, the
close, that's why it's
closed
up
ones, yes,
there.
the request of projects to close. So I only had one, ARPA 7, air conditioning for HMS band room.
Did that not get done? We had questions.
I think Bill said it was done, but I don't think the last bill had been paid.
Yeah, I'm gonna just make sure if
Okay,
it's paid, all of the invoices are received and paid.
okay.
Yeah.
For that one,
Let's not act on it
okay.
until we know for sure.
And are there any that we can close that you know of? No.
So,
Okay, all right. Well, maybe by the next time we have a meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe by the next time the rest of that stuff will come in, like we
Yeah.
ordered everything, but not all. of it
Yeah, and
comes.
July 1st, I know like a lot of this other stuff, a lot of these big ticket items are gonna get purchased, and so
Yes.
maybe in a month or two from now, we'll have a really good
Have
idea.
you seen, we got new paperwork and new documents about the second tranche, but it didn't give a date, shockingly enough. You haven't seen a big lump sum
No.
come in,
Yeah,
She would've
I thought
noticed.
maybe on June 30th, we'd see it.
maybe.
Okay,
Update you on the emails.
yes,
So I think it's still referred to that $35,000.
yes,
The original thing, little over $10,000 got spent for radios,
Mhm.
which I believe the town's paid that bill already. All the mechanical issues have been gone through, and there were some front end repairs and rewiring to be connected standards and that sort of thing. We have not seen the bill come in for that yet.
Mhm.
We have a bill to do part of the lettering. And it's back at the sign shop now to meet the required Connecticut standard of the stripe has to go all the way to the front of the hood instead of
Mhm.
stopping at the door. There's regulations to meet, that are Connecticut specific. And we ordered approximately $9,000 of equipment for it,
Mhm.
which isn't the end, but it's the bulk of it. And so, we're hoping to, yeah, Charlie, it's probably still gonna be a couple months before we get the we gotta get the state inspectors to come out, but it's gonna get approved by motor vehicle and then get the registration and so on and so on. So it's still a work in progress, but we're spending a bunch of money and
Okay,
moving forward with that.
okay. All right, well, the only other thing on the agenda is to call public hearing.
So if I added up correctly, we added for 7 new items. So and we had 5 existing, so we have 12 items to talk about.
Yeah, one.
As I see Donna's eyes glaze over, would this commission be opposed to 2 public hearings and with no action taken until both public hearings have been held? I mean, that's a lot, that could keep us here for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we divide them up, but we just take no action on any item until all of them have had an opportunity to be heard.
We do have to hear all of them before.
That's
we
what
start
I-
saying no. So
That's what I think. I think we're at that point. But I just don't know that we could be here for 6-7 hours if we do it all in one night.
But that's not precedent. Precedence is we've already acted on a number of requests that came in. And as they came in, we acted on it.
A few at a time.
Right.
So I'm concerned with the allocation of monies, as I think we all are. And how that's going to proceed going forward. So
Wait, can I just want to make sure my statement was clear. We heard 7 things and then we took action on those potential 7 things. I'm saying we have 12 things. Let's hear them over 2 nights and take 0 action on any of them until after they've all been heard. Divvying them up, but not changing the opportunity for us to take action on them. Just the public input portion, so that the action part is still all on an even scale. So instead of one night and then taking potential action on any of them in one night, we hear them in multiple parts and we don't take action on anything, any of these 12 items until after all have gone to public hearing. I think it puts them on the same level playing field as before. We just we're realistic about the fact that this public hearing could last 6-7 hours. I mean, look at the discussion just our 11 members had, and we've been looking at these things for quite some time. And we've now been here for 2.5 hours, 2 hours. And
Yeah.
I think the public is gonna have a lot more questions. I hope they are.
The only thing I would say is that we added
They haven't.
4 today, after hearing them for the first time.
Right.
So some of these have been waiting, some of them are like the rec one is time sensitive. So I can see that we didn't call a town meeting, a public hearing after the last one because we wanted to add a few more. We didn't anticipate we're gonna get that many more, I guess. So we wanted to make it worthwhile to have a few things on the agenda. Now we have too many things.
I mean, we've already agreed to or voted to move them on.
Yeah.
I'm sparing any of us from a 6:30 until midnight public
I'd like to
hearing.
throw something else into the mix. July 11th is the first day of summer camp, so myself and our Parks and Rec director will not be in any shape for an 8-hour meeting after.
I don't know that any of us.
Throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, so that to me, now we voted to move them all and we put them on a level playing field now. Whether they were here 2 months ago or now, they all at the same time have been moved to this public hearing that hasn't happened. And I'm saying I just want to level it out. If, if the group is opposed and wants to do it in one night, it's going to cost us more to warn to, but
But the end is in sight as well.
What if we limited the, well, we can't limit the public here. comment.
right, I want to make sure that the public has all the information they need and all the questions they need. And that each person can be heard equally.
Then how do we decide which ones are on which night?
And that's why I'm saying we don't take action on anything until they've both been heard, so we just
Yeah,
take them in order, just maybe numerical order.
yeah.
Can you do it though,
How they
if
were
it's,
received.
if it's going quickly, then we can keep going?
If we didn't warn it, we couldn't talk about the next one,
So, all right, so if it's
right?
quick on one and then
Like the
not-
cameras could take up a 2-hour conversation, depending, I think that could be a controversial topic. I think the employee information could be a controversial topic. I think they're all important to be heard. People may have look, we're proposing $200,000 in work that we understand now at River Road. The public may have a lot more common input, or they may surprise us and ask nothing.
Well, I think they're gonna surprise us because it's not tax money. I'm not sure what they consider the impact of them. Maybe there's some near and dear things to them. All these will be publicized, right? These will all be put out.
They have to.
Okay.
So
I haven't heard much yet. I think I sat in on the public meetings, right? We didn't get much.
yeah, so far there haven't been.
There hasn't been much at all. 3 people, 4 people.
similar to our town vote for the budget.
I'm just saying, once we put 12 items on a public
Okay,
hearing, we're
alright.
here until they're gone.
Well,
And I don't want to discourage people if it's, now 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night and they can't hang in there. Hear the one thing they wanted to talk about at the bottom of the list. I want to be conscious of that and make sure that we give the equal opportunity.
So I
I'm
think
doing
though,
okay.
we couldn't we, what's the word? Not adjourn.
Can you carry the meeting over to
Carry
a
it.
second night?
But I think that's what they do down, planning and zoning does. If
Yeah.
it goes too long, they just continue it.
And I know Mass, they do a
So-
lot for town meetings, because they vote
I
for
do-
40 different items on the town warrant. They'll cook 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 nights to do the town meetings.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could list them all and then maybe we only take 5 minutes for each one. But maybe
Yeah.
not, but at least like then we'll know where we're at. And everyone will see like, it's a lot of things, so we can't spend a lot of time belaboring every little point.
Well, we may not, but
Right,
I think they get to ask as many questions
Yes.
as they need to feel comfortable with and for me, I want to hear everything they want to say before we make our decisions.
Sure.
If nobody comes to talk to it, I think that helps us make our decisions in one way or the other, right? But it did at least in the first group where we had funds. But now I think it's important that we give them every opportunity and we haven't had a lot of input, but I don't know that we won't.
okay.
I think we can list them all and just put like a disclaimer that we're probably gonna need to go to a second night and maybe have a time limit of, anything that is not raised by 9 PM will be moved to the next agenda. And that way,
It's a 7 to 9, 7.
yeah,
So
that's,
Planning and zoning does a public hearing and it's extended. They don't have to warn the second time it comes to public hearing. Once it's open, it stays open until,
yeah, they might have to,
or
When
anything they didn't get to.
yeah, I'm not sure exactly how they do that, but you probably would have to come up with another date and say, okay, these are the things that are left on the agenda. And we're gonna go on these things. But, and we should do them relatively quickly after. 'Cause,
I'm saying, if we pick 2 dates right now, we know that are pretty close to each other.
yeah,
Can you do one night, one the next?
I like
Yeah.
your idea.
yes,
List them all. We don't, and say, if we don't get to it by 9 o'clock,
then we're moving it to the next
yeah,
date.
just leave it
And
open.
then advertise both dates all at once. So then maybe we don't need the second date at all, or only
Right.
be maybe
We
only
get it
5
done.
minutes of the second one, or maybe we need a third.
So let's determine the
And
date
then-
so we make sure we have a quorum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So they all know.
Yep.
Pick some dates.
yeah. Well, the 11th was one date that we had, and we like them to be on
Retired, so-
Mondays, right? Because that's when the employees are.
We did that one, is the 11th a Monday?
Yeah.
The 11th is solid, right?
And that's not a board of selectmen night.
I know. I
Um,
mean, we need it, but maybe over the course of a couple of days.
So the selectmen meet on the 4th and the 18th, so maybe we say the 11th and the 25th of July.
Yeah, that's a long time
I
in
know,
between.
or we say the
Can we do
11th.
2 nights in that week? Is anyone opposed to that?
Do the 11th and 12th.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, that'd be
There's
just
no
simple.
way, there's the 11th and 12th, there's no way. 50 kids at camp
I
and
mean,
just,
I guess,
Well,
it's
that's-
the first day,
Right, I mean, that's the next
if we
6
had a
weeks
little
right
bit
now.
of time,
The 11th and the 13th.
and that's okay, and I,
Well, what
You
if we put, well, no, because you're still a member of the commission. But the items that you might need to address. Opposed and that.
I think that like if we did, and I know this isn't a popular thing, but if we did like later in the week when things were a little bit more established, I mean, that's the first day. So it's gonna take a little bit of, but by Wednesday, Thursday, it should be all right.
What about like Monday and then Thursday if we needed it? Is Thursday the 14th?
That's the 14th.
14th, yeah, that works for me, and that's not a board finance night. Who else meets on Thursdays? Not planning and zoning, they meet on Tuesdays. Yeah. That's probably.
Is that it?
Yeah,
11th and 14th?
11th and 14th. What
The big
time?
book.
At 7 or 6:30? You want to do early?
Yeah.
Yeah,
6:30,
6:30.
yes.
Okay.
6:30.
So the 11th.
Changing it.
Okay, and we'll see. Let's see where we're at. But we'll, and I'll put them right in the order of the numbers they are and see how far we get. And also make the note that we are now officially closed. Senator, I want to make a motion about that we're closed.
You
for
should
public
be.
viewing.
So can I move that we close applications for ARPA funding
As of
Effective, what,
effective
effective
today?
today,
now?
I mean, they could have-
Effective today, yeah, immediately.
immediately, like, so anything before 3:40 PM today.
Subject to be reopened,
Yeah,
Once
pending
approval.
fund availability.
pending availability.
Yeah,
Second,
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Very messy.
Any abstain?
Sorry.
Makes sense.
I just
Okay.
want to give us the opportunity to open it back up if suddenly we didn't agree on these things or things withdrew.
Yeah, okay. All right, so with that, I have no one here present to speak. Is there anyone online present to speak?
Yes.
Okay, is that you, Karen? Yeah, Karen.
Hi.
Hi, thanks for hanging in there with us.
Karen Ann Caldwell, Chair of the Library Board. Christina came and spoke to our last meeting, and we do understand that you have more requests and you have money. And we knew about this meeting tonight or this afternoon. I actually thought it was tonight, so I was late to the meeting. And you just discussed the idea of closing the requests. But I did put a request in last week. It is ARPA 39 that I was hoping would get on the agenda today. Since it didn't get on the agenda, when could that possibly be discussed?
I didn't see that. Hold on. Do you know what day it was, Karen?
It was the end of the week. I'm not sure.
Oh, so we have to get our agenda out on Friday. So the deadline for me to get stuff on the agenda is Friday. So sounds
Yeah,
like
Friday, what time?
I did it before noon.
Okay, see, I apparently submitted it at 12:15. I thought I had till 2 o'clock on Friday.
Oh. We have until 2 o'clock to post our agenda, but we have to get it to the town clerk by then, so I have to get it to her. So I tell people to get me stuff before, at the end of the day on Thursday. But if I had seen it, I maybe could have got it in, but I didn't see it. So I'm sorry about that. And I think, so your request then, oh, I don't know. I thought I looked this morning. But, 39. There's a 40 too. Yep, that's here. Here, $27,600 for repair of the library building structure. So I think we need to put that in a special category because it still should be part of our mix. It's just not, I guess we say it's round 2. Because at the top of the, yeah, at the top of the wait list, which it basically is anyway, everything at the end here. So yeah, so I did get in before we closed, which was at 3:40 today. So that's good news, but it didn't make it to get on the agenda to be heard today. So it can't be on the public hearing agenda, but it is still something we have to consider and think about in our next regular meeting. So
Okay, and when is that?
normally they're the first and third.
You said there was an ARPA 40 that got submitted as well?
No, I said, I don't know if there is. Let me just see if anyone else put something in. Because, yeah, I don't get an email when it happens. I go in and check all the time. No, there's no ARPA 40. So, yeah, so ARPA 39 is the very last one that got submitted. So normally we meet on the 1st and 3rd. July 4th is not an option because it's a holiday. July 18th is probably what we will do because it's right after the public hearings.
So
So
you want to try to squeeze a meeting in the week of July 4th, just to hear this one item and get it out.
we wouldn't be able to get it on the public hearing agenda.
It wouldn't change its standing.
Yeah. So,
We'll postpone the public hearing agenda. Wait a minute, let's see.
unless we have a special meeting of this committee.
I think our procedure at this point has been that the committee, we've known that we had Thursdays to get anything to you. And if it wasn't there when we submitted the agenda, it didn't make it onto the agenda. And we've said from the beginning that these things were on a first come, first serve. While I still want to welcome hearing it, I think we've had a process in place. If we start trying to squeeze meetings in to go to public hearing, doesn't mean it won't get there, but does that mean that we do that for anyone else who wanted to bring something forward?
Well, it's only one, right, but I don't know when we would do it. Because we can't do it on the.
So to do our regular meetings in what, 24 hours to post the agenda?
Yeah,
So
for a special meeting. Yeah.
for a special meeting, so
But if we're trying to get it onto the public hearing, we're just putting ourselves farther back to not make it for a July 11th public hearing.
What's the deadline for that? A week ahead of time?
It has to be, I mean, we give ourselves 2 weeks because by the time you prepare it, if it went to the, you would need to go to the newspaper by this Thursday.
I mean, what if we call a special meeting this Thursday for this one item and then submit the agenda for the
I
public
mean, I
hearing?
guess we'd have to see how many members of the board would be available and when. I can tell you, at least one member of staff it's the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
In fact, if she's given up this many hours now,
Both of my jobs, I have to be in the fiscal year.
yeah, so.
Yeah.
I-
Could we put it on the public hearing agenda as an item for the board to like?
We'd have to take action and
Yeah,
we're,
we'd still
done with
do-
it. We're kind of
Do a
out of the
special
action
meeting
item
to
of our meeting.
consider it moving forward.
Mhm. But if it was on the agenda, as a public hearing agenda, as an item to be received and heard, not
Right, that's it.
at that meeting.
I think
It'd
that,
be
I
the
think
very-
we've done that before. We only
Yeah,
agreed we didn't want to take action on approving anything else.
right. So I think we could do that.
Would it get pushed to the end of a potential second date of our public hearings? It would be the end of.
Oh, yeah, we could do it that way. All right, Karen, I think we figured out something.
Okay, and actually, if you put it way at the end and it goes to a second night, that's actually better because the 11th is our library board meeting anyway. So,
Okay.
so if you do it late on the 11th or on some other date, I'm good with that.
The only thing is, it would be the very first thing on the agenda to be received and heard, because that's the step you're at, is it has to be heard. So by our commission. So if at 6:30, someone could come and just quickly explain the project and let us ask a few questions.
Yeah, no, that's not a problem. Library board doesn't start till 7. I can be there at 6:30.
Perfect. All right, problem solved.
Okay, is this Zoom or is it in person?
It'll be both.
Okay, so if I'm on the Zoom because I need to be on the Zoom for the library, I can do that. Okay, thank you so much for considering this. And next time I will make sure, not that there will be a next time, but I just didn't realize that we were waiting on a last minute quote and I didn't realize I got it in too late. So thank you for
No,
listening.
thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you guys submitted something. I see Ralph Tillis's hand up.
Yes, you do. Ralph Tillis, 47 Village Hill Road. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes.
Just a question. I'm not going to comment on any of the applications that you've heard tonight because this is probably not the correct time to do so. But one question I have for the commission is, obviously you have more requests than you have funds. Is it the intent to proportion the balance amongst the unfilled requests? And if so, would that give an applicant the opportunity to withdraw their request if they don't get the full amount that they're looking for? If that's the case, then that creates a little bit of a surplus for you that you can distribute out amongst the rest. Just something for the commission to ponder, because obviously I think the goal would be to disperse all that exists in as fair a manner as possible. I just wanted to offer that thought to the commission. Did anyone understand what I said? I hope.
I think so. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, that's all.
Thanks. Is there anyone else? No, I don't think so.
No, just 3 people left.
Okay. All right, that's it then. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 3:51.
3:51. All right, you guys are up. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? All right, thanks. Thanks, guys.